welcome to another Checiegirl Art Chat. In this podcast, I'm joined by Caitlin, an illustrator. Caitlin creates gorgeous watercolor and gouache illustrations as well as ceramic palettes that caught my eye a while back when someone I followed on Instagram shared that they had bought one of her palettes, and I just fell in love with her palettes and her account, and I really wanted to share her creations with you. So, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi. I'm Caitlin Bongers. I'm 24 years old, and I have been self-employed for about a year now. As as Nativa said before, I'm an illustrator as well as a ceramist, and most people on my Instagram know me for the ceramic palettes that I make.
So, how did you get into like illustrations and ceramics?
Well, for illustration, I've been doing illustration since I was very little. My mom is actually a painter, and she always brought me into just being creative and making things with my hands. Um, so I've been doing that since I was very little, but I actually only decided when I was around 20 that I wanted to be an illustrator. Um, for ceramics, it's actually only been a year that I've been doing it. I jumped into it last year. I wanted to make some watercolor palettes for myself and for my friends. And then I just got all these messages of people wanting to buy them. So I guess I made it my business.
Wow, I really love how a lot of people I speak to had creative parents, especially a creative mom. I have a creative mom too, and I guess like being surrounded by creativity inspires you to create, like no matter what it is. Um, yeah, because it's really important to create, I think, like no matter what. So I think that's really cool, and I love that you only started doing ceramics like a year ago. It's crazy the kind of things that like you do for yourself or you just try out and then all of a sudden it becomes a really popular product. I'm always really fascinated by like what just catches on without you even planning for that to happen. Yeah, because they
Yeah,
really
it's
are.
really interesting. Thank
Um,
you.
no, they're lovely, especially like the speckly ones. I don't know how you're glazing to do that, but it's really pretty. I wanted to ask like more about your illustrations. Like how did you kind of develop your own style? Like it's very distinctive. Whenever I see a post, I don't even have to see that you've posted and tell that it's yours. Feel like red pandas.
Hmm.
This cute. So like how did you kind of develop that of
I
illustrations?
think for a really long time, I've just been trying to learn how to break things down from pictures and from things in real life. So in the beginning, I was just like practicing a lot. And after a while, I was like, oh, well, I don't really know if this is what I want to do, just drawing from pictures and learning how things really look in real life. I actually want to be creative and make things that don't exist in real life. So that's when I started to think about, okay, but what are things that make me happy? What are things that I would like to see? What are things that make me happy when I'm creating them? And
Mm.
I think that's how I started to draw more animals because animals make me really happy. And also just the experience of playing with real materials on paper
Mm.
and combining them into something magical and colorful. So that's how I'm constantly working. And about my style, I think that partly I have a style, but partly I'm also always like evolving and trying out new things. And I definitely have a certain attraction to certain color palettes. So I think that's also what's very clear in my work.
Yeah.
But I'm always trying out new things and just trying to keep an open mind to see where the experience of making art is taking me. Was that
Okay.
sort of a clear answer?
No, that makes sense. I don't think I have a style, but then people are like, "Oh yeah, you definitely do." I mean, I recognize your pieces whenever you post, and I'm like, well, okay, whatever you say." But I guess even without trying, you would, especially if you like use I guess the same kind of techniques. But what do you find? Because I know I definitely find that when I change mediums, my style changes slightly. I might be able to see kind of like similarities, but it definitely changes with mediums. Do you find that as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think that if you compare like my digital art that I don't often make, but if
Mm-hmm.
you compare my digital art to my watercolor pieces, it's very, very different. And
Mm-hmm.
also, if you look at my ballpoint pen drawings, they'll
Mm-hmm.
have a lot more hatching, while my gouache pieces might be a lot more clean. So it definitely changes. You still have an attraction to certain shapes and colors, so that will look as people as your style. But
Mm-hmm.
it will also have, of course, different qualities in all of your work.
Yeah, yeah, no, I completely agree. I know that like I do digital sometimes. I'm not really sure if my style comes through yet just because I'm not used to doing digital very regularly, but I do very much see the differences between watercolor, gouache, and like acrylics. I do palette knife painting a lot with acrylics, so I guess that's probably the main difference. But yeah, I do see the similarities kind of cross over a little bit, especially when I'm doing things that I like to do a lot. Um, so like where'd you get like your inspiration from? Like what inspires you to do a sketchbook spread? Is it like colors, things around you?
I think a lot of the time, what inspires me is like, of course, I get inspired by a lot of different people and a lot of artists in my life. And also, I think I get inspired often by the uh, emotions that I feel and the things that I am consuming in my own life. So if I am consuming, for example, a TV series that has a lot of magical elements in it, and I'm feeling a little bit sad, I might make some art based on those magical feelings and about the little bit sad feeling that I'm having. And I'm trying to combine that into my art, and that's also what makes it really meditative for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm trying not to be too inspired by other artists because I feel like sometimes I might be copying style elements of some artists, like not really consciously getting too much of other artists in my work. Like it can be an inspiration, but it can also be
Yeah.
a distraction.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, I think it's just a lot of my personal life and feelings that I put into my art.
Mm. Okay, so would you say that kind of like the emotions you're feeling tends to make you like pick a certain color palette, or is it just mostly like the color palette you tend to use is just what you just really like the look of?
I think it definitely matters how I feel, what color palette I pick. And sometimes it's also that the color palette I pick makes me feel a certain way. So if I want to feel happy, I might pick really. I often work in pastel colors, but I'll usually pick colors that make me happy to also feel better. And if I'm just really sad, it'll just be blacks and blues probably.
Okay, makes sense, makes sense. So what kind of tips would you give someone maybe just starting out or who really wants to get into their sketchbook? Like how to stay loose in your sketchbook? Because I know I'll be like, okay, let's do a few quick sketches, and then 4 hours later I'm finishing a very detailed illustration. So like, how do you keep it loose? Because I know that's how I really struggle. Like what kind of tips would you give to people who want to be loose in their sketchbook, but keep on like, refining everything and finishing everything off.
Yeah, I definitely try to work very confidently so that I um, try to not care about the end result, but just try to build on a page and see, like, oh, I have a little bit of white space here. What can I do with it? A great tip that I really like is overlapping different elements on the page. So not only making loose sketches with white space around them, but also trying to start a sketch behind another sketch that you've already made. And if that can be a little bit difficult in the beginning, but you could also be like collaging a bit. So you'll make sketches on different pieces of paper and then cut them out and glue them on top of each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also really great to just sketch things in your area around you and try to
Mhm.
overlap those. Or just paint a
Oh,
background a certain color and then it also looks very
mhm.
full.
Okay. Yeah, because no, that's definitely. I'm really bad about using my sketchbook. So when I watch your sketchbook spread, I'm like, my gosh, I want to get better at it. I need to get better at that.
You
Oh,
definitely just need to have fun with it. Getting
yes.
better will come when you do it a lot, and if you have fun with it, people will see it in your art.
Okay. Well, I think that's advice that we can all take a leaf out of your book for sure. Um, so what made you decide to like start your business? Like because you said you've been self-employed for, is it a year now?
Yeah, about a year.
Okay,
I
so
started my web shop in October last year, actually, so that's exactly a
oh
year.
wow. Well, congratulations for that. That's
Thank you.
so what the ceramic palettes becoming really popular that like kind
Mhm.
of helped you to then be able to become self-employed, or is it something that you were always working towards and just you were able to get there a bit quick because of the palettes?
Yeah, I definitely did always want to be self-employed. I quit my uh, art school education last year in March, and I decided to just. I had a little bit money saved, and I thought, well,
Mhm.
I can survive for about a year on this money. I just want to give it my all, and try to see if I can like make this work. And in the beginning, I wanted to do like conventions and stuff and sell prints of my illustrations and stickers.
Mhm.
And then, of course, well, we know what happened in 2020. Corona came,
Yeah.
so we didn't have any convention anymore. So I had to figure out what to do. And that's when I started making the palettes and opening a web shop and see where that went. And it definitely the pellets went kind of fast in the beginning already that I wanted to put more time into it. And
Mhm.
although it's not fully enough to sustain myself yet, it's definitely going somewhere. So yeah, that's sort of how it all began.
Okay, so would you say like now that I mean I'm not too sure what it's like
Hmm.
where you live because I know it's opened up a lot here in the UK, which has allowed me to get back to doing markets, but like next year would you want to start doing conventions as like since you were really wanted to do that before, would you want
Hmm.
to then go back to doing conventions and like selling prints and stickers as well?
Yeah, I definitely also planned to do that. I actually had my first convention ever last week. So that was really exciting, and I'll have another one next month, and then next year I definitely also plan to go on conventions again, and I also want to see if I can go to like Celtic conventions and maybe bring my watercolor palettes and stuff.
Ooh, that sounds nice. Yeah, I'm sure the palettes will be a hit because they are awesome. So like along with like prints and stuff, like talking about more new things when it comes to your illustrations, would you also want to like add storytelling to it, like comics or something? I know I've seen like some stuff about that on your previous studio vlog, so would that be something that you want to do in the future?
Yeah, I actually that was the reason I got into art in the first place. I really wanted to be a comic artist, and I think I still really want to make a comic. And I'm also writing here and now, but I just feel like the writing part of making a comic is not my strong suit. So I either really need to dive
Mhm.
into that part and get better in it, or I might want to work together with a writer and make a comic in that way. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to one day making my own comic.
Yeah, I completely get what you mean. The writing part stumps me as well. It's strange. I'm always told I'm really good at telling stories, but when it comes to putting it down on paper, it's like I hit a wall. I guess maybe one of the ways I could find is like to record it instead of writing it down. That probably would help as well. Um, and I know for me as well, like the anatomy, like trying to get down what I see in my head on the paper is also something I need to kind of work on. But I guess like making a story is a much more longer process instead of
Yeah,
just
it's
saying,
really intimidating. It's like
yeah,
so
it's
many micro skills that you have to combine together to make this one finished piece.
yeah. Well, I think because I think I've seen you talk about
Hmm.
vlogs. But it'll be really cool to see. Like, I'm hoping that you're able to, because I think it's really cool when we're able to tell our own stories in comics and stuff. It's really fun. Different artists do their comics. Um, so what would it like? What would it be? Would it be more like fantasy? Kind of what would be the genre?
Yeah, it would definitely be fantasy. Like I'm a huge fantasy nerd and lover, and so I really like the thick fantasy books that have like
Mm.
14 parts that you have to read.
Yeah,
So I definitely
and
also want to include that in my work.
do you also love when maps are at the beginning of books too? To like
Yeah,
any
that's
story
great.
world? I
I
think that's
actually just I listen to a lot of Audible books, and I think that the main thing that I don't like about Audible books is that I don't get visuals.
yeah, yeah. No, I I love when they have maps or like if it's the characters speak a different language. I love when like they have like an alphabet or something, so like you kind of know you can learn the
Mhm.
language yourself. One of my favorite fantasy books, the author had like a mini the page like in the language of like some of the characters. So you could like I translated them, like saw that there was like a mini story, and I was like, I think it was in each book. And
Oh,
yeah,
that's great.
I love those kinds of little details that you get in fantasy novels. It was really cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so what do you kind of have coming up? Like you said that you have another convention. Is it next month? So that's November, right?
Yeah, in November.
In November. Oh, do you have one in December as well, or is it just in November?
Just in November, but I do think that I'm kind of talking about to go together to another convention next year in March. So that's a little bit away, but
Mm.
hopefully I'll be on a convention then again.
Okay, cool. So you have hopefully another one coming up. And what kind of like products would you have coming out like in the new year?
Yeah, so I'm working on a couple of different things. For my illustration, I actually haven't made prints before. I'm now mainly focusing on stickers and postcards, but I
Yeah.
definitely want to do prints. And I'm also working on making my own sketchbooks with my prints on them. So that will be really interesting. And
Mm,
um, for my ceramics, I am also working on a few new products. I definitely want to be really creative with my ceramics again. I feel like I've been making a lot of the same things lately, and I want to try and see how I can do some new interesting things again. And also, if it's possible, I'd really like to make ceramic dip pens too. Like make a nice little set of ceramic where you'll have your watercolor palette and your
mm.
dip pen and the little water holders that I'm making.
Okay.
So yeah, that will be interesting.
That would be really cool to see because I know you have your palettes and you also have your little like kind of ceramic half pans,
Hmm.
do you call them? So that'd be really cool to like add to the set.
Yeah.
If you can grow the set, why not? So how would you like make your palettes a bit creative? Is it like you're changing the designs or like the shapes or something?
Yeah, definitely also the shapes and designs, but I'm really looking into if I can make more carved palettes again. So I want to combine my illustration work with my palettes, where I actually make like when I put a different color of underglaze on top, and then I use a little knife to carve out designs on top of the palettes. So it would be so cool if I can put like my animals
Hmm.
as a design also on my palette. So that's what I'm actually looking at right now.
That sounds awesome actually, because then it's like you would get, not only do you get something like functional, but also like a piece of art as well, and
Yeah.
then they'll be a bit more unique, I guess, as well, if you're kind of putting different creatures and stuff on it. That's really cool. That'd
Yeah,
be
I
really cool.
definitely really want my palettes also to be like separate art pieces that
Hmm.
um, if you're using it, you can also look at it like, oh man, I have this awesome piece of art instead of just
Right.
an object that you use for painting.
Okay, okay. Boy, you would definitely have to keep the palette clean then. You wouldn't want to keep it. I think that's a really nice detail. I've seen quite a few different kinds of ceramic palettes, but I've never seen something like that before. So I think that would be really and then the dip pens would be absolutely awesome. Would you make like little kind of ink wells as well that you can like put your ink into, then dip the ceramic pen into?
Yeah, actually, I know a lot of people that use the little watercolor pens that I make. They
Mhm.
use them for putting ink in because they're like this small, so they're just
Mhm.
perfect for a little bit of ink that you can dip your pen into. But I also have like little ink wells where you can put your brush or your dip pen on the edge of the inkwell. And I'm also
Okay,
going to make a lot more of those.
nice, nice. And you also do paintbrush holders as well, isn't it? Like you can rest on so
Hmm.
directly on your desk as well.
Yeah.
That'd be so cool.
Also helps with not throwing off your brushes, because that's something that I always did. Like I would be working and then my brushes would be laying on the table and then I would throw them on the ground, and
Yeah.
they were a
I
necessity for me to make.
My table is level, but my studio's in a shed. The shed is not
Yeah.
level. Thankfully, it rolls like towards the window, and like the kind of DIY tripod thing I made for my camera put it from rolling off like behind the desk behind my drawers, so that saves me.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, paintbrush holders would definitely be useful because it probably happens as much as like artists accidentally drinking their paint water. It's one of those occupational hazards, losing your paintbrushes off your table. But no, I think it's really cool all the different products you have and like you'll be working on for the future. I'm really looking forward to seeing how your palettes like progress and evolve. Um, and yeah, so where can listeners find you?
Yeah, so I have an Instagram and a YouTube account, as well as my own webpage that has my shop on there. And it's all just Caitlin Bongers. So my website would be caitlinbongers.com.
Okay, so Instagram and YouTube, I will definitely make sure to link that below as well as your shop link. Definitely check out her YouTube. You can see like vlogs of like behind the scenes with the palettes and her paintings, as well as a few like process videos, like sketchbook spreads, that kind of thing. On her Instagram, you'll get to see like her new illustrations when she brings out new products. And is your Etsy open at the moment?
I actually closed down my Etsy, so it's now all on my web shop.
On your web. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll link the website and you can get all of her products. So you can definitely check that out. And you're in the Netherlands, right?
Yes, yes, I'm from the
Yeah.
Netherlands.
So yeah, check her out, especially if you're in the Netherlands, because you'll be supporting a local Dutch artist. Uh, and yes, so I want to thank you for joining me on the podcast. It's been really interesting to kind of hear how things started off and what inspires you and everything, especially like your plans for the future. I've really enjoyed that. So thank you for joining me for this podcast.
No, thank you. It has been great being here, and it was lovely talking to you.
Thank you. It's been lovely talking to you too. Yeah, no, I'm really glad that you said yes to the podcast. I've been really wanting to connect a little bit more with artists that I've been following for a while, or like been messaging on and off. So it's really cool to like see your face and everything and talk to you like this. And yeah, thank you so much for being cool with being on the podcast. I
Yeah,
appreciate
it
that.
was an awesome idea, and I'm really glad I did it. I was here.
So going to say goodbye. Thank you for everyone who's listening. If you enjoyed it and you're listening on YouTube, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, click that notification bell. Um, Caitlin on all her social medias, check out her website and her shop. Especially for, I don't know, any maybe last minute Christmas gifts or just a special treat for you because as artists, we always need a special treat. We to get something pretty. So yeah, definitely check her out. And yeah, thanks again for listening and thanks again for joining me.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.